The Christmas celebration in 2008 turned into a horrific tragedy that would be forever etched in the history of the quiet California town of Covina. When local law enforcement arrived at the scene, they were shocked by what they saw. It resembled medieval depictions of hell, with charred bodies lying amidst ash and blood. The Ortega family, who lived in a spacious house about 30 kilometers from Los Angeles, always eagerly anticipated the Christmas holidays. For Joseph and Alice, it was a special occasion to gather all 5 of their children together, sons Charles and James and daughters Alicia, Letitia, and Sylvia. On December 24th, they gathered as usual for their traditional family poker game, enjoying the warm atmosphere and lively conversations. An unexpected knock at the door marked the beginning of the horrific events. Upon opening it, none of those present could have imagined they were letting death itself into the home. Within minutes, neighbors began frantically calling 911 to report a fire at the Ortega house. Some heard gunshots and cries for help, and saw people panically running out of the burning building. Arriving officers encountered true chaos, aptly described by one as apocalyptic. The burning house, crowds of agitated neighbors, and numerous rescue and police crews created a scene of utter disorder. Letitia, one of the Ortega daughters, managed to escape with her 8-year-old daughter who had been shot. At the hospital, she revealed shocking details. The attacker was a man dressed as Santa Claus who first opened fire and then set the house ablaze. Neighbors' accounts corroborated her story. Around 11:45 p.m. they had noticed a car driven by a man in a Santa costume. After extinguishing the fire, rescuers discovered 9 bodies. Autopsies determined that 3 of the deceased, the homeowners and their daughter, died from gunshot wounds, while the other victims perished from fire and smoke. The condition of some bodies was so severe they had to be identified by dental records. Concurrent to these events, a related tragedy was unfolding in the neighboring city of Santa Maria. Brad Pardo found the body of his 45-year-old brother Bruce with a gunshot wound to the head. Initially everything pointed to suicide. 2 9mm pistols were found nearby, one on the lap of the deceased. However, the absence of a suicide note and a bullet hole discovered in the ceiling led investigators to suspect the presence of another shooter. Detectives uncovered a significant fact during the investigation: the victim had recently gone through a divorce. His ex-wife, Sylvia Ortega, had officially ended the marriage on December 18, 2008, just days before the tragic events. Notably, her maiden name, Ortega, indicated a direct connection to the family attacked in Covina. Investigators immediately hypothesized a link between these deaths. They theorized Bruce's death was a carefully staged suicide. The perpetrator likely intended for law enforcement to perceive Bruce as the Santa suit attacker who took his own life after the mass murder. However, details of the staging raised doubts, suggesting the real killer was still at large. Forensic analysis established that each of the 9 victims had sustained at least 1 gunshot wound. 9mm caliber bullets were found in all the bodies, the same type of gun discovered by Bruce's body. Law enforcement later re-interviewed Letitia once she was able to give a statement. Her testimony was shocking. Despite the disguise, she recognized the attacker. According to her, it was Bruce Pardo, her sister's ex-husband. The other victims had shouted this during the attack as well. Based on this account, police conducted an additional search of the man's death site, focusing on his vehicle. Examining the car revealed traces of blood. It was also confirmed this was the same vehicle neighbors had seen in Covina. It disappeared from the crime scene after the fire started. Sylvia Ortega's childhood home became the site of the traditional family Christmas gathering. Joseph and Alice, her parents, brought the whole family together every year for a joint celebration. This time, the family event presented the perfect opportunity for the Santa Claus attacker to carry out his horrific plan. He staged a bloody massacre, methodically destroying everything around him. The perpetrator's motives seemed obvious, given the brutality of murdering 9 people, including children. Bruce, who had openly exhibited hostility towards his ex-wife and her family, fit perfectly into this picture. Sylvia's body and those of her parents suffered the worst damage, the very people towards whom he harbored the most hatred. The celebration had drawn many guests, including family friends. The exact number of attendees is difficult to establish. Around midnight, the doorbell rang, more visitors were expected. 8-year-old Katrina, Sylvia's niece, was the first to see the figure of Santa with his traditional sack through the peephole. The little girl's childish delight contrasted with the events that followed. The adults were surprised by the appearance of the unplanned entertainer. Neighbors later reported seeing a person in a Santa costume near the Ortega house just before midnight. One even greeted him, receiving a friendly gesture in return. Nothing foreshadowed the approaching tragedy. According to eyewitnesses, Santa waited calmly by the door after ringing the bell. A neighbor who observed this returned to his own house, assuming it was part of the celebration. However, shots and screams were soon heard, prompting him to call the police. The festive costume lowered the guests' guard. Everyone assumed it was a pleasant surprise, without trying to ascertain its origin. The attacker entered with a sack where, instead of gifts, weapons and a homemade flamethrower were concealed. Letitia, Katrina's mother, had gone to another room to get a video camera to capture what she believed would be a joyous moment. This accidentally saved her life. She heard the shots at the moment her daughter approached the stranger. Instead of the anticipated present, Santa pulled out a gun and shot the child in the face. The methodical destruction of all those present then began. Having exhausted his ammunition, the attacker reloaded. He acted with inhuman cruelty, not discriminating by age. The couple tried to hide under the table, but they were found and shot at point-blank range, mostly in the heads and backs. Afterwards, the murderer fired control shots. Hearing movement in other rooms, Santa continued his hunt. James, Sylvia's brother, was fatally wounded. His brother Charles managed to shout the beginning of the killer's name, Brew, before his life was cut short by shots. Having completed his bloody deed, the criminal moved on to destroying evidence. From the same sack, he took out the homemade flamethrower and began spraying fuel on the bodies and surroundings. However, the fire spread faster than planned, engulfing the first floor. According to Letitia, the flames spread to the attacker's costume, forcing him to flee. This moment allowed her to save her daughter, but she could not help anyone else. Letitia immediately called emergency services due to her daughter's head wound. Out of the entire festive gathering, only she, a 16-year-old teenager, and 2 other guests managed to escape. All the others who fell into the attacker's line of sight were mortally wounded. The survivors watched helplessly as the burning house where their loved ones remained until a gas cylinder exploded. Arriving fire brigades, about 80 rescuers, fought the blaze for an hour and a half. After a more thorough investigation and autopsy, doubts about the identity of the perpetrator dissipated. Forensic examination confirmed that Bruce had indeed committed suicide alone. His body showed characteristic third-degree burns on his hands and legs, a consequence of the Santa suit catching fire, as Letitia had previously testified. Particles of melted material were literally fused into the skin, finally confirming his involvement in the crime. Bruce and Sylvia's story began when they met through a mutual colleague. Sylvia, a divorced mother of 3, quickly hit it off with Bruce. Their relationship developed rapidly, and in October 2006, they got married. The couple purchased a spacious house for their life together. Bruce, who worked as an electrical engineer at a large company, provided a decent income. He also volunteered at a local Catholic church, creating the image of a caring person ready to help even strangers. However, his attitude towards money revealed another side of his character. The desire for wealth accompanied Bruce throughout his life. Thanks to hard work, he acquired a boat and several cars. Together with Sylvia, they made the first payment on an expensive house in an upscale neighborhood and took out a mortgage. However, by 2007, the harmony in their relationship began to falter. Sylvia felt overburdened. She combined a well-paying job, raising 3 children whom Bruce ignored, and most of the mortgage payments. Additionally, she cared for his dog, which he neglected. The couple had a joint savings account, but Bruce's contributions were disproportionately small. Financial disagreements intensified due to his refusal to share expenses for Sylvia's children from her previous marriage. The situation reached a critical point when Sylvia discovered that out of the expected $80,000 to $90,000 in joint savings, only $9,000 remained. Bruce had secretly transferred the funds to his personal account. Later, another lie was exposed. Despite claims of not wanting children, Bruce had a son from a previous marriage, a fact accidentally revealed by his mother. Bruce's life path seemed exemplary: a peaceful childhood, successful studies at California State University, Northridge, and a promising career as an electrical engineer. However, his obsession with money manifested in unethical behavior at work. He illegally accessed information about colleagues' salaries and fraudulently inflated his own work hours, which eventually led to his dismissal. Bruce's personal life was characterized by problematic relationships due to his financial stinginess. A telling incident occurred in 1988 with a colleague named Dia. On the eve of the wedding, which the bride organized at her own expense due to Bruce's refusal to finance the wasteful ceremony, he failed to appear at the altar. Instead, he withdrew $3,000 from their joint account, set aside for the honeymoon, and vacationed in Palm Springs on his own. At age 30, Bruce married Elena Lucan. In 2001, their son Matthew was born. Tragedy struck when the boy was a year old. During his mother's brief absence, he fell into the pool. When Elena returned, she found her husband with the unconscious child, but he did not call for help. Thanks to the mother's quick reaction, medics managed to save the boy's life, but oxygen deprivation led to irreversible brain damage and partial paralysis. The wife's suspicions about the incident being intentional remained unproven. Soon after, Bruce abandoned the family, categorically refusing any financial support for his unemployed wife and disabled son, even avoiding meetings with the child. Medical bills for treating the disabled son reached $35,000. Unable to reach a voluntary agreement, Elena turned to the courts and secured meager monthly payments of $200 to $240, a sum clearly insufficient for the needs of a child with disabilities. Upon learning about this history and Bruce's indifferent attitude towards his own son, Sylvia decided to end the marriage. By the divorce court's decision, Bruce had to pay his ex-wife $10,000, significantly less than the amount he had misappropriated from their joint account. Additionally, monthly alimony of $1,785 was assigned. Sylvia kept the engagement ring and the right to their shared dog, while the real estate issue remained under court review. Bruce's life rapidly deteriorated. In addition to the unfavorable divorce, he lost his job, leading to the cancellation of alimony obligations due to lack of income. Accustomed to significant expenses, he found himself in a difficult financial situation. It was then, investigators believe, that a plan for revenge formed in his mind, to destroy Sylvia and everything she loved, including her entire family. Pre-Christmas preparations included purchasing 2 pistols, an air compressor, highly active fuel for the homemade flamethrower, and ordering a Santa Claus costume, all of which were later used in the Christmas attack on the Ortega family. The discovery of the car Bruce had rented revealed the scale of his plans. The vehicle was prepared for a long journey, a laptop, a change of clothes, food, maps of Mexico and the USA indicated an intention to leave the country. The car's location, 500 meters from the office of Sylvia's divorce lawyer, Scott Nerd, suggested the possibility of additional victims. The initial plan was thwarted due to a malfunction of the homemade flamethrower and a gas explosion, which led to serious burns for the attacker. Instead of the planned escape, Bruce, suffering from pain, drove to his brother's house where he ended his life by suicide. A significant arsenal was found in the criminal's car, 4 pistols with 13-round magazines and about 200 additional rounds of ammunition. The bloodied Santa suit turned out to be booby-trapped and was neutralized by sappers using a robot, resulting in the complete destruction of the car. Additional weapons were found at Bruce's home, 5 empty boxes for air pistols, an M2 tactical shotgun, an empty canister of fuel, and a makeshift laboratory for manufacturing explosives. The consequences of the tragedy were horrific. 13 children were orphaned, although they could have also died had they been present at the party. Surviving relatives took custody of them. The girl wounded in the head at the entrance was particularly affected. Doctors miraculously managed to save her life, but a long path of rehabilitation lay ahead. Toxicological examination revealed the presence of prohibited substances in Bruce's body during the attack. Attached to his body were $17,000, likely for inconspicuous transport across the border. A discovered Air Canada ticket with a connection in Minnesota, where his friend lived, raised questions about his true escape intentions. There is a hypothesis about a plan to murder his own mother, who had revealed the truth about his disabled son to Sylvia and maintained friendly relations with the Ortega family. Only illness prevented her from being present at the fatal party. Despite the absence of prior displays of aggression, investigators concluded that the combination of financial problems, a difficult divorce, and a fixation on money pushed a previously balanced person to commit a horrible crime. That's all for now. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any future content. Take care and goodbye.